Coming up on American Medicine Today, Americans over the age of 60 have a 50% chance of being diagnosed with cancer. We speak to Dr. Ashani Weeraratne about the new understandings of cancer that can better control the disease. Next, Tony's pain was so severe he was losing his ability to walk. See how the exclusive Bonati spine procedures kept him out of a wheelchair and living pain-free. Finally, Dr. Bonati discusses the negative impacts a socialist mentality has on our economy. Will Democrats finally take note, or are we headed for further disaster? Find out coming up on American Medicine Today.
Featuring cutting-edge science and medical innovation, touching personal stories of recovery from pain, along with political, social, and healthcare issues plaguing our nation. This is American Medicine Today, brought to you by the Bonati Spine Institute and Alfred Bonati, MD.
Welcome back to American Medicine Today. I'm Kimberly Bonati alongside Ethan Euchre and world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. Alfred Bonati. A person born in America and over the age of 60 has a 50% chance of being diagnosed with cancer at some point in their lives. Now, joining us to discuss is Dr. Ashani Weeraratne, pioneering Johns Hopkins melanoma researcher and author of Is Cancer Inevitable? Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. Now, not only a pioneering researcher, but you actually had your own brush with cancer. Why don't you tell us about that?
Sure. It was definitely just a very minimal brush for me, largely, I think, because of what I do and what I know. So one day I was at a salon getting a pedicure, and I looked down and it looked like someone had taken a black Sharpie and drawn a straight line down my nail.
Wow.
And when I saw that, my heart sank because I knew that that looked exactly like a disease that we call acrolentigenous melanoma. It's a type of melanoma that affects predominantly people of color like myself. And it's often found on, the palms of your hand, the soles of your feet, in your nail beds. In fact, it's a cancer that Bob Marley died of, which I don't think a lot of people know that.
I didn't know that.
We were very lucky. It was totally pre-malignant. But, it was something that inspired me to sort of go on Facebook and social media and say, hey, listen, I realize not a lot of people would have known to even go to a dermatologist if they saw this. They might have thought it was some kind of weird nail fungus or something. And a friend of mine contacted me a couple of weeks later, and she said, I saw the same thing on my husband's toenail, and I ended up taking him to the dermatologist, and his was actually a stage 2 melanoma that they were able to catch, remove, and he's doing fine years later. So,
is cancer inevitable? So, do you think that it is? The statistics show that at any given time, in any given room, half of those people are at some point in their lives going to be diagnosed with cancer. So why do you think Americans are so susceptible to coming down with cancer?
So it's not just Americans, it's humans in general. I think we were never really designed to live this long, right? If you think about our sort of Neanderthal ancestors, they lived a full life, married, had kids by 13, and were gone by age 40, probably, if they were lucky to live that long. And so our bodies are not really designed to continue to develop and grow into such late stages. And I think that the answer to the question, is cancer inevitable, is yes, but I think that the answer to the question, is dying from cancer inevitable, is no. And so, it's a lot of why I wrote this book sort of during the dark days of the pandemic when everything felt very, very hopeless. I was thinking a lot about the fact that we have come so far in the arena of cancer research, right? So we have patients who were stage 4 melanoma patients walking in the door that 10 years ago would have been asked to get their affairs in order, who today are receiving therapies that are life-saving and living, decades to see their children grow up.
Your book really offers that optimistic outlook on the future of cancer. Do you think that there really will be a cure?
So I actually don't think we'll ever have a one-size-fits-all cure for cancer. I think cancer is such a complex disease. I always say to people who say to me things like, why haven't you cured cancer yet? You work all the time. We never see you. Come and spend a week with me in the lab, and you'll see, if I give a cancer cell drugs, it will build a pump on its own surface to pump those drugs back out of the cell. And that it's the first time I ever saw that type of thing happen. I was fascinated by this disease. But what I do think we'll have is treatments like we have for things like diabetes or high blood pressure, where you're able to control the disease and keep it in check so that the person can live a healthy life for a really long time. And that's really where we're heading with a lot of the new therapies that we have today.
So you talk about in the book how, I guess, the aging process fuels the growth of tumors and cells. Can you explain that a little more?
Sure. So one of the things, that we had sort of started to think about was the fact that, as you mentioned at the opening of this segment, more and more older people are faced with this terminal disease, with the cancer diagnosis. And we wanted to know what that meant on a molecular level. And so we started to investigate all of the different molecular components that surround a tumor cell in either a young context or an age context. And what we found is that as we undergo a normal aging process, the normal skin cells start to secrete all of these factors that take tumor cells that might have been sitting there since you were 18 years old and you were still out in the sun playing sports and whatever, and your initiated tumor cell just sits there doing nothing, but then it gets exposed to these age-related changes that drives it to become more and more aggressive.
How can people better protect themselves from getting skin cancer? Don't be stupid like me and not put stuff on your face, I guess.
It's a great point. So, one blistering sunburn before the age of 18 increases your chance of melanoma by 73%, I think the figure is. So it is really tanning, burning. I am a huge, whatever the opposite of advocate is of tanning beds.
The advocate.
I hate them. I wish we would outlaw them in this country like they have in Australia. And people use them, right, in a way to protect themselves from the sun. Like people think if I go get a base tan, then I'm going to be more protected when I go to the Bahamas. And I always say, would you smoke a pack of cigarettes to protect yourself from lung cancer? You wouldn't. So,
Exactly.
So the things that you can do to protect yourself are to obviously seek shade. If you can't seek shade, wear SPF 30 or above. Make sure it's broad spectrum, so you're protecting yourself from both UVA and UVB rays. And also to wear sun protective clothing. Reapply your sunscreen every 90 minutes when you're out in the sun. People forget about reapplying all the time. They put it on when they leave the house and they never reapply. And then they say, but I put on sunscreen. Why did I get burned? And wear a wide-brimmed hat. That's really important, too.
And people don't think about it when they're driving in the car. Usually they say a lot of the cancer or these melanomas develop on the driver's side, or if you're always the passenger, the reverse.
I've heard it called trucker arm.
Yes. So, there's a very dramatic picture that I use in a lot of my presentations of a truck driver who drove, for 20 years, and one side of his face is completely wrinkled and sun damaged, and the other side of his face is untouched. It's amazing.
Wow.
And so, yes, indeed, it's something to think about. Most cars these days, if your windows are up, have some level of SPF protection. However, if your windows are down, obviously you need to think about that.
You say in the book that there's whispers of there being a cure. Would that potentially happen in our lifetime, or we're talking, a century from now?
Let's hope.
So what I will say is that for melanoma, we see what we are now using as the word cure in about 20 to 30% of our patients. We have these amazing new therapies that are called immunotherapies. They're ways that we harness our own immune system to attack the tumor. And so, yes, right now in the sphere of melanoma, there was a recent trial that was announced at the big annual clinical cancer meeting, ASCO, where they took a trial of 18 people who had rectal cancer with a specific mutation in their genes, and they gave them immunotherapy, and every single one of those patients went into remission.
Thank you so much for discussing such an important topic, because especially here in Florida, you can't avoid being in the sun, even if you just run out to the mailbox and back. So thank you very much, Dr. Ashani Weeraratne, pioneering Johns Hopkins melanoma researcher and author of Is Cancer Inevitable? Thank you for being on the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
Make sure you stay tuned. Coming up after the break, a story of recovery. Revolutionary in his field, Dr. Bonatti created, perfected, and patented the Bonatti spine procedures. Using his genius, Bonatti invented the precise tools necessary to minimize surgery, scarring, anesthesia, and recovery. So successful are the Bonatti spine procedures, they consistently reflect 98.75% patient satisfaction. 70,000 procedures have been performed exclusively at our location. Nearly half our patients have suffered from failed back and neck surgeries at other facilities. Bonatti succeeds where others fail.
My name's Tony Smith. I've spent most of my life in publishing, and in aviation publishing in particular. I am a pilot, although I haven't been active in about 10 years. I used to be a lumberjack when I was young and got hit by a couple trees, and but never had any back problem that required anything more than an occasional visit to a chiropractor. For fun, I'm a golfer, which probably is not good on the back. My back got so bad, the only thing I could do is actually just sit in a car. And so right now I'm employed by a company. We drive railroad engineers and conductors. We shuttle them back and forth between their trains, and that's what I do.
Tony believes his pain is due to a number of factors that include being hit by falling trees while working as a lumberjack.
I got hit by about the last 10 or 15 feet of the tree, which is pretty whippy. But the worst one hit me across my right shoulder, twisted me hard this way. And in the woods, you wear hobnail boots. They got spikes on the bottom so you don't slip off a log. So of course, when you get hit like that, your feet stay still, your back goes this way. I had some soft tissue damage, but nothing, it didn't rupture a disc or anything like that. So a lot of my back problems are hereditary. My grandfather had problems with his back. My father has problems with his back. Last year, I was admitted to an ICU unit. With COVID, I spent 21 days in the ICU, had a pulmonary embolism and a heart attack as a result of that. Spent another 26 days in recovery and rehab, terrible hospital beds. And I was finally discharged from the hospital, started some light exercises, nothing heavy at all, just some stretching basically. And in about a week, I felt in my butt, it's like I'd strained something. And I thought, well, I've probably, even though it's light, I'm probably overdoing it, so I stopped. It just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And by Christmas, I couldn't walk without a walker. And it was agonizing. It was my hips, my buttocks, down the back of my legs. And I went to see my primary care physician. We thought it was bilateral sciatica, gave me a couple injections for that, relieved the pain for like 24 hours, but then the next day, back full blown. I basically became a shut-in. I couldn't go to the store. I couldn't go to a movie. Obviously, any kind of outdoor activity like golf is out. My pain was so debilitating, I couldn't get in and out of the shower. Towards the end, it began to be painful in my hips, like laying on my back. And if I tried to shift in the bed and move, it was very painful. Problem I had with my back is I had compression at 5 levels on the foramen, and discs had collapsed. And this was causing enormous weakness in my legs. Even though I could manage the pain, I would just be physically unable to move after about 50 feet. So I could go from my bed to my desk where I work. I could go from there to the bathroom. And I could go from, there to my truck in the driveway. And that was about it. When I first got here, I could barely make it from the door of my car through the double doors. And I had to stop there and say, could someone please get me a wheelchair? Because I had to have it. I couldn't get around without it. And if it hadn't been for Bonatti, I would be wheelchair bound right now.
Tony tried a number of conservative treatments, but was unable to find relief.
Steroid injections, hot and cold packs, ibuprofen. The only thing we didn't get to was prednisone, but I don't think that would have helped at all anyway. I have a friend who's a chiropractor. I went to see him and he would not adjust me because he said, you have some real problems here and you need to get an MRI. And he said, I'm not going to adjust you. Finally, in late January, went and got an MRI and we saw the damage to this. And then we started talking to doctors. Okay, what do we do? Fusion, fusion, fusion. This is all they wanted to talk about. My dad has had a fusion at 3 levels, and it's been misery for him for the last 20 years. I'd seen 3 back surgeons. One back surgeon told me that, oh, you don't have any back problems, you need a bilateral hip replacement. Really? Okay, thanks, goodbye.
Knowing that he didn't want a fusion surgery or hip replacement, Tony started researching for alternatives on the internet.
You know, your website and your Facebook ads, of course, those were helpful. You know, the more I researched, the more I was leaning towards Bonati.
He decided to call after visiting the Bonati Spine Institute's website and spoke with a patient advocate.
I decided to contact Bonati. I talked to Catania, and so she walked me through the whole process. We got my MRIs transferred down to where they could look at them.
Learning he was a good candidate for the exclusive Bonati Spine procedures, Tony made the drive from Tennessee to Hudson, Florida. After a physical evaluation, he was sent to the on-campus imaging center for updated x-rays.
We rolled across the parking lot there, maybe 50 yards to the imaging clinic. Did the series, took maybe 20, 30 minutes to do the series. By the time that I got back across the parking lot, those images, because now x-rays are digital, not film, they're already loaded in the computer for the doctor to review. And Dr. Nowak came in, and probably within an hour after heading out for the x-ray clinic, he's reviewing those images with me.
You got quite a bit of stuff going on. At least 4 levels that need to be addressed, because this is all squeezed off here. Yeah. Your spinal cord ends there, but your roots are getting stuck together like sardines here, here, and a little, and somewhat here as well. Here. Oh, definitely weaker.
Yeah. This leg has never really recovered full strength after this quad repair.
Tony required multiple procedures on his lumbar spine to regain the strength in his legs and eliminate his pain.
So we started at the least worst place at the top, L2, L3. And the plan was we worked down to L5, S1. And then we came back to the left side of L4, L5. And that was the surgery I had yesterday. Surgery is wonderful. Yeah, it is, as they say, twilight sedation. You know, I was looking around for the monitor, and Dr. Campoli said, "What are you looking for?" And I said, "The monitor. I want to see what he's doing." So they stopped and moved the monitor to where I could see it while he could see it. And it was really interesting to me. I had no pain. That first surgery, was able to get up and walk better than I'd walked in months. In fact, your nurse described the scars. She said, "Oh, it looked like little kitten scratches." And I thought she was just like, I said, "No way," but that's what it looks like. It looks like my cat jumped in the middle of my back and went, I am completely 100% satisfied. Now I can go home. I can begin to rehab myself. Walking is life, basically, and for everything. And they're very wise here to say, walk. It's generally healthful, keeps your spine in motion. It's been a wonderful experience. I wish I could have come 6 months earlier. When you can't walk 20, 40, 50 feet without collapsing, and then suddenly be able to, I'm gonna get up here.
Couldn't do that 8 days ago, guys.
I'm gonna walk a couple hundred feet from here out to my car and leave. That's everything. That's divine.
Bonati was the one that helped me completely. Thank you for giving my career back to me.
Several people have asked me, what did you do, where did you go, who did you see? And I'm more than happy to tell them that the Bonati Spine Institute is the place to go.
He said, "Don't tell me, I'm going to tell you what's wrong with you and tell me if I'm correct." And so he did.
The good news this time is it was not open back surgery.
They did give me my life back.
This scar is this big.
He was a doctor that didn't want to fillet my back open like a fish.
During the whole operation, I was awake. I was talking to the doctor. I saw the operation in the monitor.
He's not really cutting muscles, he's just pushing them away.
Immediately after the procedure, I was able to stand straight again, and I had zero pain.
Well, he did the surgery on the left side, and a week later, I was back in the gym.
Don't wait until you're on that downward slide where you can't even function anymore. Just don't wait. Just get it done.
When somebody can help you to where you can recover and where you can do the things that you were able to do before, you just become thankful.
I can't thank the Bonatti Institute enough for giving me my life back.
It just opens up doors that you thought were closed.
I love you, Doc.
Bonatti Spine Institute is looking for quality neuro and orthopedic surgeons with knowledge in endoscopic procedures to join our team and provide life-changing techniques. Send your CV directly to hr@bonatti.com. Welcome back to American Medicine Today. The discussion continues. What does the ugliness of socialism and communism bring to our country?
When I was in communities or in countries where socialism or communism was ruling, I saw the difference of people actions and people behaviors. And then I tried to understand initially why that happened. Well, older I get and more problems I see in society, more I understand that freedom makes the difference in the person.
Right.
The beauty of our country is that we are free. But be very careful because it's fragile. And the push of socialism in this country today is extremely strong because if you really look, the rest of the world has some sort of liberal thoughts. Europe is all liberal. If you look a little bit in South America, governments are being twisted towards the left side. Despite bad experiences, we just elected a president in Colombia who was a guerrilla individual. And this individual immediately started to think that they're going to take properties from the people and put the people who has houses more than 700 square feet, they will be occupying that space. But the rest of the house will be occupied by people that they will select to bring in those houses. Those things are such an invasion to the body of the country.
If you have a house larger than 700 square feet, say I have a 1,200 square foot house, 500 of those square feet are going to be allocated to others to come and live in my house.
Yeah, and you never would know who it is and why.
And you have no control over it.
It's like Airbnb, except communist style.
Okay. And we're talking about
not good.
Colombia. Colombia has as a neighbor Venezuela. 2 or 3 million people from Venezuela flew to Colombia. And that people is telling the Colombians, careful with what you guys are doing. Seeing the results in their own country of these people that they are refugees from Venezuela and Colombia.
Sure.
Seeing the tremendous amount of cost because they're helping some of these people. Then they select somebody who is going to do that to the country that you are living.
Right.
And the problem is what happened in the United States with Trump. They are faking the votes. They are robbing the votes. That's the only explanation. One of the things that communism needs to do is not only indoctrinate your people, change your health care, and a lot of things that they are going to go control of population.
Right.
But we're talking right now, what's happening in the country? They're trying to control the economy. A healthy economy will never tolerate communism.
We did have a healthy economy.
We're heading off the edge of the cliff.
This regime took over.
We still have a tremendous healthy economy that can tolerate all these bumps. But the problem is how far we can go. And they are trying to go to the bottom. The problem with this is once you not indoctrinate, but you change the way that the middle class behave, then you have now a real problem with the economy. If the industry is paying you $2, the government is going to pay you $2.50.
Right.
But you are not going to work. Well, if you do that, then the people decide to stay at home. So the population of workers start to be scarce.
The decline is happening. It's in full effect.
Yeah, the decline is happening. And the next thing that they do is they say, work at home. Working at home is totally a cancer in society because you lose your friends, you lose the relationship, you lose the community approach, and then you suddenly become a loner at home where probably you will hate your children and you will hate your wife or your husband because they are permanent having conflicts. So you destroy the family. So all these ideas that the socialism has is only to be able to control people. Once you control the population, then now the reverse happens. And the reverse is you were making $5 or you were making $10, we will pay you $5. No excuse for it. Do you want it or you leave it? Right. If you leave it, then you go to prison because now you're costing money to the state.
Right.
So then you need to go to camps of concentration where they make you work. Or if you accept, now you have a problem because now you don't have enough, but you cannot work in another place because that's as much as you are allowed to work.
Right.
So the next problem is that you don't have the money, you don't have the family, you don't have a situation because you cannot defend yourself because they took your weapons.
Yes.
Number one. And second, they destroy your economy.
Yes.
So be very careful when somebody said to you, oh, I'm having so much fun at home because the government is paying me.
Certainly.
The government is really
using you,
looking at you as a product for later being in prison.
You don't want communism in this country, and we have to do everything we can to fight that from taking a foothold here in our country. Thank you for joining us on American Medicine Today. Join us next Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern on Newsmax. If you have any comments or questions, contact us at the number below. You can tweet at Dr. Bonatti using hashtag American Medicine Today or hashtag AMT. We would like to hear from you.